While I was at the PIC, I was called by Dr. Mutsunyani.
Doctor?
Mutsunyani, Sam
Yes.
Mutsunyani.
Sam Mutsunyani.
Yes.
Okay.
And he asked me to come to his house on a Saturday afternoon. And we sat under a tree. And they made us tea. And he told me a very long story, long, painful story. He said to me that in 1964, an idea occurred to him that part of the problem that African people were not progressing was access to credit. And yet, they were classified as high risks by the banks. And yet, the money that was in the banks was theirs because they make deposits. So he says it occurred to him that maybe what he should do is establish a bank that would be an African bank. In fact, that is what it was called. And he says he went around all the townships and villages in South Africa trying to establish a bank. And there were no hotels there. In fact, the hotels that were there did not take black people in the 60s and the 70s. And he slept in people's houses and told them about this idea of establishing a bank. And they donated money towards the establishment of the bank. These business people who owned cafes and butcheries and African people that were not allowed to be involved in manufacturing by legislation at the time. So it took him 10 years to raise 1 million rand with which to establish a bank. And then when he had raised that 1 million rand, he says he spoke to the ANC about it. And they gave their blessings, but also directed him to go to London and speak to Barclays. And he did. And Barclays said, we will help you. And they gave him the 9 million rand. And he came to South Africa and he had 10 million rand with which to establish a bank. And he came to South Africa and had to apply for a banking license from the Reserve Bank. And the Reserve Bank did not refuse. They gave him a banking license with Barclays, but put onerous conditions, including the board membership of the bank and all sorts of things. It was incidentally headquartered in Garangua, which is where I am from. And I remember it very well. It was in Zone 16, next to the cinema there, Mokoko. So he says because of the conditions of the Reserve Bank, the bank struggled. For example, they were not allowed to open current accounts. And yet their clients were business people from the township. They had to come and withdraw cash to go to Metro and to Macro every Friday to buy stock. So they could not just go and sign checks there. And it was a very painful experience under the supervision of a very hostile Reserve Bank at the time. Cut a long story short, Chairperson, his point was, Molefe, you are now CEO of the PIC. It controls so many billion rands. The governor of the Reserve Bank is a black man who comes from the ANC. And the ANC is in power. The ANC that had bought into this idea in the first place, in the 70s. And le palelwa ke, which means nihlulwa yini. What is so difficult for you guys? And Chairperson, those were very, very, I took those words to heart. And I went back to the PIC, and I think it was...
You were saying, in effect, look what I did under very difficult conditions with hostility coming from the Reserve Bank, and it was apartheid government. Now you have an ANC government, you have the ANC here, you have a governor of the Reserve Bank who has the background of the ANC, is black.
The president
the conditions should be much more easier for you to achieve this thing.
To achieve this thing, to capture the savings of African people.
Yes, yes.
With the purpose of reinvesting them to advance and improve the conditions.
He was saying, what is your problem?
He says, yeah, he didn't say what is it. I think what is your problem is mild. We are
Yeah, why are you failing?
Why are you failing?
Yes.
Yes. So, Chairperson, I mean, it gave me sleepless nights. And I came back and thought about this thing. At about the same time, there was a rumor that Nedbank is for sale. And I decided that maybe what we should do is take Nedbank and and transform it into this bank that Mr. Mutsonyana was talking about. So I mulled over the idea. I contacted Nedbank. It is owned by Old Mutual. They confirmed that Nedbank was indeed for sale. They had advisors who were supposed to oversee the sale, expressed my interest. And they agreed. And they said, but Molefe, can you raise the capital? I said, I will try. And I left the PIC to go on this mission. And I went to London to speak to people there about doing this. I even thought of maybe we could buy some other banks. In South Africa, there was a family that had come from India, had established themselves as business people, and had opened a computer company. And, well, I heard that they were doing quite well. And I went to them and I asked, if one wants to establish a bank, where can one get the capital? How can one raise the capital to establish such a bank? And they said, that is very interesting. You know, in India, we have banks that are Indian-owned, that are our banks, like Bank of Baroda and several others. Let us speak to some people in India, to see if they will be able to assist you. And they did. I'm not sure if I should mention who they spoke to, but they spoke to one of the richest people in India. I met him. I'm just reluctant to release his name now. And he agreed. And he said, we'll do the deal. After 5 minutes of discussion, he said, I'll help you buy Nedbank. I was happy, I was elated. And we went to the Reserve Bank with this person and the Guptas and Mr. A.J. Gupta. And we got to the Reserve Bank, and the banking supervision said, no, we can't allow this to happen. Nedbank can't be sold. We've already sold Standard Bank to the Chinese. We've already sold ABSA to the English. I remember when the Barclays Bank came to the PIC when I was CEO to say that they would like to buy ABSA. And I said to them, I didn't think that the Anglo-Boer War would end like this. And anyway, but then the Reserve Bank was reluctant to proceed. And with the Reserve Bank reluctant to proceed, the governor was Mr. Mboweni, and I even saw him. We had a code for this. If you ask him what is the Groblersdal minute, he will tell you what it is. It was about a black bank.